Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 74 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. So I want to take just a quick moment before we get going to say thank you for everyone who has supported the show. Thanks for sharing the show and the information on your social media, as well as thanks for those who have rated the show and left comments on iTunes as well. It's very cool and it really helps our standing as well. So thank you so much. It really means a lot to me to hear from listeners and to know what you're getting out of the show. So thanks for the support and the feedback. Okay, let's start with our martial arts quote. And that is, "A true martial artist is the integration of the warrior and the sage. He is a man of peace, but he has the ability to destroy." And it's a very cool quote. I don't know who actually said it, so we're going to call that from Anonymous, but very cool quote indeed. All right, moving on to the interview. After the interview, make sure you stick around for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Okay, my guest today is Professor Roy Harris, and Mr. Harris is a very accomplished martial artist and part of the original BJJ Dirty Dozen, which refers to the first 12 non-Brazilians to have been distinguished with the rank of black belt. He's a 5th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Professor Joe Moreira, and he's trained with many world-renowned instructors in a wide variety of arts, people such as Rick Faye, Guro Dan Inosanto, Larry Hartsell, and Paul Vunak, to name a few. He studied Jeet Kune Do, Kali, BJJ, Sambo, Wing Chun, and a variety of other arts as well. And he is known the world over as an instructor's instructor. He's taught literally thousands of people, including law enforcement and military personnel. And in 2007, he was inducted into the Masters Hall of Fame. He runs Harris International, which offers online videos and trainings, such as the widely popular BJJ Over 40 video. And he's also the author of the book, The Jiu Jitsu Answer Man. He's an extremely deep and interesting person, so I know you're going to enjoy this interview. So without further ado, let's meet Professor Harris now. Okay, I'm speaking with the world-renowned Professor Roy Harris. So, Roy, thank you so much for taking time to talk with me today, sir.
Marty, thank you for the call.
My pleasure, and just want to say what an honor it is, speaking with you. I have been a fan of your work for quite some time, and just really respect you and what you do. So, again, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Roy, you're a 5th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Professor Joe Moreira, and
yes,
owner of Harris Jiu-Jitsu and Harris International. You have a lot going on for sure, and some of the things that you have going on are online courses, training and testing, a book you've written, seminars, and other things. And we'll hopefully be able to discuss most of these in this conversation. But let's get started by you telling us about your background and history in the martial arts. As I mentioned, you're a jiu-jitsu black belt, but you've certainly done many other arts as well over the years. So tell us how you got your start in martial arts, and we'll talk about what that journey's been like for you, sir.
Okay. Well, the nutshell version is I started martial arts training back in 1981, back in Duluth, Minnesota. I actually started with Wing Chun Kung Fu in the basement of a Chinese restaurant. And I was back during this time, it was the place where I was living was a little bit racial divided, and I got beat up and pushed around and spit on. And so I wanted to learn martial arts to be able to defend myself. And parents didn't really want me to get involved in martial arts. And so once I moved out on my own, through a friend of a friend, I found a guy who was a waiter at a Chinese restaurant who on his breaks would teach Wing Chun in the basement of this Chinese restaurant. So that's where my journey in martial arts started.
That's a nice place to start for sure. Wing Chun, great art. Where'd you go from there, and what was next on that journey?
What happened next was I moved to a bigger city, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I was going through a martial arts supply store, and I said to the gal that was working there, "Hey, are there any Wing Chun schools in town?" Because at the time, that's all I knew about the world of martial arts was Wing Chun. And they said, "Yeah, there's this Minnesota Collie group in downtown Minneapolis. You should definitely check them out." And I thought, Collie? Minnesota Collie, what's that? So I went there and checked them out. It was with Sifu Rick Faye, and he started me on the journey with Jeet Kune Do and the Filipino martial arts and Muay Thai and a bunch of other arts. And so that was an exciting journey from around late 81, early 82 till about, February of 86 when I moved to California.
Nice. And you got pretty heavily into JKD, and I think you still do, practice that today. You had the privilege of studying with some greats,
Yes.
Paul Vunak and, of course, Guro Dan Inosanto, as well as Sifu Larry Hartsell. Talk
Yes.
a little bit about what it was like training with those guys.
Very, very memorable experiences. When I first moved out here, I asked Sifu Rick Faye, "Hey, where do you recommend that I trained?" And he recommended the Inosanto Academy. And so originally when I moved to California, I was going to move to Los Angeles, but I ended up in San Diego. And I lived in an area of San Diego that was very close to the Mexico border. And the Inosanto Academy was about a 2.5 hour, 2 hour and 45-minute drive one way, no traffic. So I made the journey as often as I could to train with Guro Dan and Sifu Larry Hartsell. And after a couple of years of making that journey, especially at the time, all I had was a 1964 Dodge Polara,
Nice.
and it was sucking me dry on gas. I asked if there was anybody closer to San Diego, and I was recommended Sifu Paul Vunak. And so I began my journey training with him in the spring of 1988. And long story short, my training with Guro Dan and with Guro Larry Hartsell and with Sifu Paul Vunak, very, very memorable, very, very knowledgeable guys, very skilled at what they do, and also very personable guys. And so I have a lot of really good memories training with those guys.
I was surprised to find you were actually vice president of Paul's association, Progressive Fighting Systems, for some time.
Yes. I remember when Sifu Paul kind of pulled me aside and asked me if I would become the vice president. And at the time, it was a little uncomfortable because there were 5 or 6 guys that were senior to me. And I asked Sifu Paul, "Hey, why me? What about these other guys?" And he said, "Well, I like the way you think. You seem like you have a level head. I want to be able to bounce some business ideas off of you. And so that's why I'm asking you and not them." And so that was like in the fall of 1996, somewhere around there.
Nice. I actually did some training in PFS as well with an affiliate of Mr. Vunak, but never actually had the chance to meet him in person yet. Still hope to do that at one point. I really love that system. It's certainly got a lot of things going for it. What would you say is something that stood out about training with Paul Vunak?
Paul Vunak at that time, especially, I was fortunate to meet him pre-Navy SEALs. His gig with the Navy SEALs really kind of changed him and changed the progressive fighting system. But back in those days, Paul was really about fighting and teaching people how to fight, teaching people how to get out of fights. And he had, when you trained with him and his group, they had kind of I don't know if I would call it a hazing process, where you came in, everybody was nice until they gloved up, until they put a stick in their hands. And I remember the first time I trained with those guys, got a bloody nose. My left thigh was maroon and purple from being kicked so hard several times. So there was kind of this process that you had to go through where you had to be tough to train with his guys and his group. And that really helped changed a lot of things that I did, like, hands up, chin down, make sure your knees are bent, make sure your head and your chin are covered, good footwork, good distancing, good angling, made a real positive impact on my striking abilities.
Nice. So on your journey, what led you to discover jiu-jitsu?
Well, from Sifu Rick Faye to Guro Dan and Guru Larry Hartsell, they really emphasized the importance of cross-training. One of them, I don't remember which one, told me that, no one man possesses all knowledge and no one style has all the answers. So it's very, very important to cross-train, and even within a particular system, training with a variety of different instructors, because they all have their own way of looking at it, their own personal way of developing the art. And so I took that to heart, and I trained everything, and I hated the ground. I did some shoot wrestling. I did some judo. I did a little bit of wrestling prior to jiu-jitsu, but honestly, I just hated it. I hated the ground. And my instructors kept telling me, you have to train the ground. Well, roughly about fall of '88, I believe it was, one of the students at the Inosanto Academy was training privately with the Gracies in their garage and told me, hey, there's these Brazilian guys, you should check them out. They take you to the ground and they choke you out. And my response was, okay, whatever. I really wasn't interested in the ground. And then one day in class, after class, he said, hey, you want to spar? I want to show you something. So we went out on the asphalt, and with minimal protective gear, we did some sparring out there in this asphalt parking lot, and he surprised me, shot in, took me to the ground, put me on my back, sat on top of my chest, started to lightly slap me in the face. I had no idea what to do. And so I just turned over, because I outweighed the guy by 52 pounds. I turned over, belly down, put my hands in the mat, went to push myself up off of the ground, not off of the mats, but off of the ground. And he put his arms around my neck and choked me, and I had to tap. And that experience made me say to myself, maybe there's something to this jiu-jitsu thing. But still, I wasn't that interested, because I didn't like the ground. And it wasn't until January of '91 that I actually pursued instruction at the Gracie Academy in Torrance.
And what was that like?
It was phenomenal. I'll never forget, my first lesson was with Professor Horley Gracie, and he put me through the ropes. He said, okay, Hoy, you lay on your back. He mounted on top of me, and he says, without biting and eye gouging, how do you escape? And he asked me to escape. So I tried to escape, and he slapped on an arm lock on me, and I had to tap, and I thought, okay. And he wanted to do it again, so we did it again, and then we switched roles. And he says, do you know how to do an arm lock? And I said, yeah, I do. So he goes, okay, you arm lock me. And I tried my best to arm lock him. And next thing I knew, he had escaped, swept me, put me on my back, mounted on top of me, and took my arm again. And this is the way the first, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes of the lesson went. And then he began to teach me their art of jiu-jitsu. And I remember thinking after that lesson, wow, this was a monumental experience. I kept thinking about some of my students who were 280, 290, 300 pounds, that I was hoping I could do that to them, And so, I had some great experiences at the Gracie Academy. And Hoyler was the start of it.
Mm. How long were you out there at the academy?
I was there at the academy for 2 years.
Okay. And I think I read where you had some previous, I guess, Sambo training and brought a knowledge of leg locks and kind of brought that to the scene. And maybe, I think I read where you even got in a little trouble, like you were leg locking everybody and they're like, "Wait, man, what's going on?"
Yeah, at the time, the Brazilians weren't very open to the whole idea of leg locks.
Right.
I remember being called in the office and told not to do them anymore. And I said, but Hoyce and Hickson do them. And long story short, I wasn't allowed to do them anymore. And so, the leg locks got me into trouble. And what happened was I started at the Gracie Academy in January of 91. In April of that same year, I started teaching a self-defense class at one of the universities here in San Diego, and that kind of ended up morphing into a jiu-jitsu class. So one day, we're sparring at the end of class, and some guy walks in and says, "Can I spar with you?" And I said, "Sure." And he arm locked me and foot locked me and heel hooked me and knee barred me. And I said, "Wow, what is that?" "That's Sambo." "What's Sambo?" I'd never heard of it before. So long story short, I became his student. And so that was what began my journey with leg locks.
You were way ahead of your time as far as leg locks, as far as most people in the grappling world. I know you, after your awakening, so to speak, with the leg locks, you really put some emphasis on that, and way before most people caught on to that. I know it's all the rage these days, but yeah, you were doing it from way back, which is really cool.
Yeah, I was the first American who, at least on the West Coast, the first American who was really emphasizing the importance of, because of my background in Jeet Kune Do and the importance of cross training and seeing how other styles deal with the same kind of circumstances. I saw the leg locks was an area that was not being addressed on the ground in the Brazilian form of grappling. And so I felt as though it would be a great inclusion in the art.
Mm-hmm, for sure. When do you feel like the shift occurred to where it was kind of more accepted? And are there any differences in general with leg locks of way back and the way they're done today, in your opinion?
The shift came, from my perspective, as the Brazilians started to become more familiar with them. Because, they had the mother art. And they, in the beginning, they didn't think too highly of people who did leg locks. And, the only reason why guys do leg locks is because they can't pass the guard. I remember hearing all of that. But then as more and more of, not so much the guys here in America, but as the guys in Brazil started to incorporate them into the tournament jiu-jitsu, and it started to become more prevalent, then they really couldn't argue with their countrymen. And so for me, I started to see leg locks start to be more accepted in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003, 2004. And as far as what I see now when I look at the YouTube videos of the gi and the no gi matches that actually allow leg locks, I see leg locks in the world of jiu-jitsu, kind of in its infancy. I see people doing the basic locks, like the straight foot lock, the heel hook, the knee bar, the figure four toe hold. I see them doing these basic locks, but their control is not that good. So the locks are okay, but the manner in which I was taught by my instructor, Nikolai Baturin, it was very difficult to get out of them.
Interesting. Well, it's going to be interesting to see kind of where it all goes from here and the developments ahead in that area for sure.
Yes.
So let's switch gears for a second, Mr. Harris. You've been active in training military and law enforcement personnel and are even a veteran of the United States Air Force Reserve, and you were also a law enforcement officer yourself for a bit. So tell us what it was like for you serving in the military as well as in law enforcement and what it's been like to train those populations.
Well, first, it's an honor because those who work in law enforcement, those who are in the military, there's a common denominator in all of them, and that is their desire to serve humanity. For cops, it's more to serve the local community, and so that idea of service, of protection, is a common theme in all who wear the uniform. My time in the reserve, I was a paramedic. I loved it. I loved emergency medicine. And if it hadn't been for a few things, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now, because I went into the Air Force Reserve to kind of test out certain things to see whether or not I was actually going to go full time and go to active duty. But long story short, I loved emergency medicine. I loved being on the back of an ambulance or being in an emergency room. That was just something that was very, very appealing to me. And with respect to my work in law enforcement, similar kind of theme, the idea of protecting and serving. My work for the University of California for 4 years was very fun, very memorable. I had a lot of different experiences. And once I hung up the badge and the gun in September of 1996 and started to teach martial arts full time, it's been very fun. Sometimes a little frustrating, but very fun to teach law enforcement, because I'm very old school in my teaching, in that the police officers, and especially military, this is a chosen profession where the chance of you ending up in the hospital or ending up in a body bag, that potential exists every day. And so because they have chosen a career path that has violence, well, there has to be a certain amount of fitness and a certain amount of training that goes into preserving yourself and as well as having the ability to protect others. And so teaching the military, I've had a chance to work with, the Navy SEALs, got a chance to work with some Rangers, got a chance to work with Force Recon, got a chance to work with the Polish and Slovakian Special Forces. I have some very funny and interesting stories working with those groups, because I take my hat off to the Spec Op community. They have a thankless job, and they do a great job at what they do. But some of them are kind of missing a few screws, and I've been elbowed in the face, I've been thumbed in the eye, I've been picked up and slammed unconscious with those groups, because that's their world, and I'm this civilian outsider, and so they want to test me and see what I'm made of. So got some fun experiences teaching military, has some very fun experiences teaching law enforcement. I just enjoy sharing the knowledge that I've been given by all of my instructors. Been involved in 27 different styles with 51 instructors. I enjoy sharing this knowledge with others, especially those who walk in harm's way every day. And if I can help them to go home at EOS at the end of their shift safely, and if I can help them to do their job more efficiently, and especially in today's world with law enforcement, to help them to look better on the evening news, that's my goals, and that's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, they sure are under a lot of scrutiny like never before from the public, for sure. And like you said, it is a thankless job, and many times I have the utmost respect for military and law enforcement, and prior military myself. Just this last week, I was fortunate to be able to be part of assisting in week-long training for law enforcement officers. And these officers were from all over the country. There were sheriffs, there were highway patrol, state troopers, local police departments, and it was just really an honor to be able to be part of that. I do understand a little bit of your frustration, I think, or at least I think I do, with for people to be in that kind of profession where the potential of you being in harm's way is very high. A lot of times the mindset is not eager to embrace training. You know, if it's not during the set hours, if you have to do it off hours or anything like that, or seek it out, a lot of times they don't want to do that. Now, there are always some, of course, but has that been your experience, and what are your thoughts around that?
Yes, my frustration with law enforcement in general has been there's this culture that for decades has relied on Motorola and numbers. And because their ability to call for cover and to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other officers show up, the majority of them have been able to go home at the end of their shift. And while that is good, it's no longer efficient. It's effective, but because of camcorders on cell phones and people recording things, now there's a lot more scrutiny as to how an individual was contacted, how an individual was arrested, how an individual was taken into custody. And so being a police officer in the 21st century, there's a lot more eyes that are watching. There's a lot more public scrutiny. And so training, from my perspective, has to be much higher on the scale than it has been in years.
I agree, 100% agree. All right, Professor, I want to read an excerpt from a book and get your thoughts and take on it. So your student, Roy Dean, in his book, Becoming the Black Belt, says of you, as an instructor, Mr. Harris is second to none. I've been fortunate to have excellent teachers throughout my entire martial arts career, but Mr. Harris is in a very special category, an instructor's instructor. If you're looking for a father figure or a coach that will tell you exactly when to eat and how many miles to run, you've found the wrong man. But if you're looking for the 21 details of the triangle choke or the 7 major and minor grips with the gi, you've found the right guy. There is a curiosity which encourages him to deeply explore answers to the questions of why or what, far beyond most mortal men. Mr. Harris once did a thought experiment where he wrote down areas to train in grappling. He penned exactly 5,114 before stopping. He remembers the number. He's a little bit Superman and a little bit Spock, but truly a moral and honest individual if I've ever met one. He cares about his students as people as well as martial artists. He's counseled many people, not just students, through difficult times and done a tremendous amount of good for the community around him. And then he goes on to say, honor, loyalty, and integrity. He understands what these terms mean. What do you think when you hear that description of you?
Well, for starters, my head is swelling. Wow, I'm very honored to hear those words. I haven't read his book yet, but I'm very honored to hear those words. And my second comment would be, honestly, I'm glad someone was paying attention.
Nice. Well, he talks not only in this book, throughout this book, but I've heard him say in other times just what a big impact you've had on his life, and just major impact. So well done for that, for sure.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Harris International and what you have going on there, starting with the book you wrote, the Jiu Jitsu Answer Man. Tell us a little bit about that and what's involved in that one.
Okay, well, back in roughly 94, 95, I started answering questions online, shortly after Al Gore developed and came to life with the internet. I started answering questions, martial arts questions, on a variety of different forums, from the United Kingdom to 2 or 3 forums here. And people ask questions about Jeet Kune Do, about Jiu Jitsu, Filipino martial arts, self-defense, all kinds of things. And so I answered their questions, and I'm thankful to this day that I copied and pasted the majority of my answers. To date, I have a little over 2,000 pages in a Word document of answers that I've given to people. And long story short, I had several people in the late 1990s, early 2000s say, Mr. Harris, you should take all of these answers that you've given and put them into a book. And I was, that was a nice comment, but it just really wasn't something that I was interested in doing. And it wasn't until later that I thought, you know what, that's a good idea. Let me start to revise some of my answers and add additional information to them and put them in a book format for people to see and learn. And because I have so many questions on so many different topics, it was hard to really pick and choose which answers I was going to put in which book. And so the volume 1 that I have out there now is not 192 or 196 pages. I am in the process of revising that. I've added some more content to it. It's about 235 pages now, and I'm actually going to not only upload this to Kindle, but I'm also going to make a printed version of it. And so it's the idea of I was a resource. People came to me not just because I was a resource, but because nobody else at the time was answering questions. 94, 95, I was a purple belt. And there were a lot of people who were very interested in jiu-jitsu and wanted some answers. And the black belts at the time just were not interested, didn't want to take the time to answer the questions. And so I did. And as a result, I answered questions on these forums as well as through personal email from like 94 till consistently until around 2004, 2005. And then more and more of the questions actually came to me through emails, which is an interesting phenomenon because having taught 500 and some seminars in 25 countries, I've noticed that at the end of my seminars, I always ask for 2 questions. A, do you have any questions about anything I went over during the seminar? And then the second question, do you have any questions about anything related to jiu-jitsu or martial arts? And what I find fascinating are the people who attend these seminars, their arch nemesis is at the seminar, and they don't want to ask the question in front of their arch nemesis. So they until after the seminar to get me privately so that they can ask the question and ask me the question privately and get the answer privately. What was interesting about answering these questions is as more and more people started to become involved in these forums, people saw, oh, that's Joe from the beginner class. Well, I don't want him to know the answer to this question, so I'm going to private message or email Mr. Harris. So I have, I don't know how many questions I've answered by email. I've never taken the time to copy and paste them and put them into a Word document, but they're probably almost the same amount as I have from the forums.
Wow.
So that's a lot of questions.
That's a lot. Interesting how all that developed and took its natural progression, which became your book. Very cool.
Yes.
So let's talk about your online videos and trainings. I myself am a huge fan of your BJJ over 40. When I got that some years back, I just really benefited greatly, really enjoyed it. I love your teaching style. I love the information in it. And then recently to me, it looks like you've started focusing on BJJ after 50, which is very interesting too. So talk a little bit about how those developed and the other videos and trainings you have on your site.
BJJ over 40 came about as the result of numerous people sending me private messages on these various forums, as well as sending me emails. And these were all guys in their late 30s to early to middle 40s who were now starting to be slapped in the back of the head by life and the injuries that they sustained as a 20-year-old that they could overcome in 10 or 15 seconds. They discovered in their 30s, it took a couple days. And now in their late 30s and early 40s, it took a couple of weeks. They were asking me, hey, do you have a program specific to us guys who are reaching that age where things in the body are starting to slow down and we're just tired of having our elbows popped and our necks cranked? And so through all of these emails, I came up with a program that was specifically designed for these people who were looking for a way to still be in the game, still attend class, but not get arm locked as often, not have their neck not just choked, but manipulated like it was. And so that's where the start of the BJJ came from. And then when I actually put it together, kind of a funny story, I'm at a Target or a Walmart or something like that. I'm in line paying for this something. And you know that bin that they have there full of all kinds of stuff that they want you to buy, little knickknacks. Oh. I reached the bin and I was looking around and I saw a DVD entitled Taibo Gold. Taibo for over 50. Nice. And I looked at the content and I thought, that's a great idea. And so I was like, you know what? I need to do something with those emails. I need to finish this program that I started. So from the emails that I received, along with that inspirational DVD pack that I saw at Target, that's what started me finishing the program and filming it and putting it out there.
Very interesting. So you saw that opportunity and that need and ran with it.
Yes. And part two of that is, it's funny. So after I came out with that, I got requests for other BJJ programs. And let me backstep a little bit and explain this perspective. It's been interesting in my involvement in jiu-jitsu to notice how jiu-jitsu has splintered over the years, and how, it used to be just, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the Gracie jiu-jitsu. But it has since splintered into, back in my day, it was only open guard, closed guard. Now you have so many different kinds of guards, the spider guard, the De La Hiva guard, the tomato guard, the Godzilla guard. You got all these different guards. And you have BJJ over 40, BJJ for MMA, BJJ for the military, BJJ for law enforcement, BJJ over 50. I got requests for BJJ over 50, BJJ over 60, and BJJ over 70.
Nice.
And so it's just kind of this interesting phenomena where everybody is looking for, they still want to train jiu-jitsu, but they want to train something that is specific to them. Mm. And so the BJJ over 40 was the start. The BJJ over 50 is something new that I have been developing mainly through the experience of teaching BJJ over 40 to predominantly guys, some gals, but predominantly guys that are between 40 and 70. And what's interesting is the problem children are always guys in their 50s.
Interesting.
They are the reason why, I shouldn't say all of them or even most of them, but many of them, from my personal experience, they are the cause of their own injuries. Because, this year I turned 55, so I get it. I understand. The 50s is kind of the last hoorah. 20s, you're the man. 30s, you're still kind of the man. The 40s, by then you usually have a wife and some children, and you're usually, supervisor, manager, director, vice president, CIO. You usually have a whole bunch of responsibilities upon your shoulders. And so maybe you don't have the same amount of time that you had in your 20s. And then in your 50s, once you reach the 60s, you're not going to be able to spar like you used to in your 20s and 30s. So the 50s is kind of the last hurrah. At least that's been my observation thus far with training guys in their 50s. And so the BJJ Over 50 program that I have put together is designed to help the guys, develop their mindset. They need to have the proper mindset before they even begin their journey. B, that mindset needs to transfer over into a training method before they even get on the mat. Because once you get into your 50s, you have to warm up. You just can't walk into a class like you did when you were in your 20s and your 30s and just start to practice and just start to spar. You got to warm up, your neck and your shoulders and your back and your hips and your knees. And so there has to be a certain amount of training that goes into what you do before you actually get in the classroom. And then there are certain training methodologies that you have to do for the sake of your other hobbies. Maybe you like camping, maybe you like hiking, maybe you like surfing or skiing or something else. B, your other activities with your wife, with your significant other, with your children, maybe even with your grandchildren. So the self-preservation really becomes a very, very important part of the jiu-jitsu landscape in the 50s, and this is just not addressed in traditional BJJ. And so I have developed this program and began to share it with some guys in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they love it.
That's wonderful. I think there's such a need for that. Going back to what you said about warming up, I totally agree with that. I know for me, even before warming up on the mat, I get up every morning and just do some really basic movement exercises just to kind of grease the wheels, get everything moving and get the hips moving and the knees and everything just for life, much less before I get to the mat. And then, but a lot of people don't understand that. Not even the people in the 50s. The other people around them a lot of times will wonder why I take so much time to warm up. And it's like, man, if I want to be with it, if I want to be good and functional, it's something I need to do. It's just a reality. And I want to be that proactive person. When you're getting older, one false move, so to speak, and you're out for a little bit. So even if it's for a few days, if not longer. So I'm really cautious about making sure preventatively I'm on point with all that. So.
And I think what needs to be defined is out. It's not just out from jiu-jitsu. This is what many guys miss. It's not just out from jiu-jitsu. It's out from date night with your wife. Mm-hmm. It's out from the honeydews that you promised to do this weekend. It's out from that hiking trip that you were going to take. You're out from maybe an important meeting that you were supposed to have with a new prospective client. And so injuries in your 50s, they really slow you down, and they have a huge impact on your personal life as well.
Very well said. So let's talk about your faith for a moment. I know your faith is very important to you, and you have a website called My Journey in Christ. So can you share a little bit about the site with the listeners, please?
Yes, the My Journey in Christ website is, I wrote it for a variety of groups of people. Today's world is different than the world that I grew up in as a child. Today, people, they want to challenge every thought and every idea. There's also a lot more deception, and there's also a lot more scrutiny. And so I think it's important that people who are involved in the journey, people who are sitting on the fence, deciding whether or not they want to do this Christianity religious thing, and people who are on the other side of the fence understand that there is a difference between a Christian and a Christian. What does that mean? It means that there are some people who are religious and they go to church, but that is really the end of their journey in faith. And that's unfortunate. There are some people who are a bit more religious, and there are some people who, who are, I'll just say it, who are downright hypocrites, and they give our Lord a bad name. My goal with My Journey in Christ is to engage people. I've had all kinds of people email me, from those who were struggling with their faith to I've had hostile, angry atheists write to me and tell me all kinds of things, from, oh, those miracles that you talk about, they never happened to you. I set up the website because I want to engage people to look beyond the religion of Christianity and face the fact of the relationship with our risen Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. There is a difference between the two. There are crossovers, there are parallels, but there is a difference between the two. Let me give you an example. I was recently in a country. Actually, let me tell you one more thing. A lot of my teaching, both biblically as well as martial arts wise, I like to use the analogy of the tree. You know, the roots are where everything began. The roots make the trunk possible. The trunk make the branches possible, and the branches make the leaves and the fruit possible. In all endeavors in life, I see so many people arguing about things at the fruit and the leaf level, and the root never gets discussed. I was in a country recently where a man who knew I was religious, quote unquote, and he wanted to show me some different things. And he told me, he said, you know, I look at the Baptists and they say this, and I look at the Pentecostals and they say that, and I look at the Catholics and they say something else, and then I look at the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormon and they say something different, you know, and there's hypocrites and all this going on. You know, this is the reason why I stopped going to church. So you tell me what's the right path. And so I said to him, are you making a statement? Are you asking me rhetorically, or do you want me to answer that question? And he says, no, I'd like you to answer that question. I said, first, I'm here to share something with you. Second, I'm not here to jam anything down your throat. I just simply want you to understand, just like what I do with the martial arts that I teach you. He said, fine. I said, you know how I talk about the tree, the analogy of the tree, the root and the trunk and all that? And he said, yes. I said, your problem is that you're looking at and spending too much of your time focusing on the leaves and the fruits. When you look at the leaves and the fruit, us, those of us who call ourselves Christ followers, it's only a matter of time before we let you down, because we're all flawed, all of us. It doesn't matter whether it's Billy Graham, it doesn't matter whether it's the Pope, it doesn't matter what pastor or priest, we are all flawed. So we're going to let you down. I want to encourage you to look at and spend your time on the root, Jesus Christ and his word. Why? Because he will never let you down. He is not flawed. Total silence. He was looking around the room thinking of what to say. And then the only thing he could say was, well, I'll have to think about that. And I said, good, you think about that, because there's a knock at your door of your heart. You used to follow Christ, but because of certain things in life, you chose to not follow him. He's knocking on the door of your heart. That's the reason why we have this conversation. So with the My Journey in Christ website, I want to tell others about my life has been changed, not by the religion of Christianity. It has been changed by the person of Jesus Christ. Yes, there are certain aspects of the religion that have changed my life for the good and for the bad, but in my relationship with Christ, it's all been good.
That's a beautiful way to put it. I really can't think of a better way to put it. I mean, just really nice. That website is www.myjourneyinchrist.com. So anyone listening who wants to learn more about that, certainly go check that out for sure. Also on your Harris International site, I read something, the following. Over the past 3 decades, he's held a variety of jobs, everything from associate pastor to truck driver, busboy to police officer, auto body specialist to kettlebell instructor, paramedic to private investigator, and basketball instructor to bodyguard. So, man, you have certainly lived a life and done a lot of things for sure.
I've been a Jamaican man. Yeah, I've had, I don't know, 49, 50. I forget how many jobs I've had, but yes, I've had a lot of different and interesting jobs.
Wow. Well, you certainly seem to live life to its fullest and really savor it and experience it. So hats off to you. Out of all the different things you've done, Professor, and all the accomplishments that you've accomplished, what would you say stands out? What are you the most proud of?
I'm most proud of the impact that I've had on lives. None of that compares with instructor certifications, black belts, any of that. I'll just say this. From time to time, I get calls at 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because people need to talk and they want to talk. I've had students who've been contemplating suicide. I've had a student whose husband was physically abusing her. I've had so many different calls early in the morning, and I'm very proud of the fact that I have made a positive impact on a lot of lives. Now, this is not to say that I'm perfect. This is not to say, look at me, look at me. This is to answer your question, what am I most proud of? I'm most proud of some of the relationships that I have developed with people over the years and the help that I've been able to provide at some of the darkest hours.
Absolutely. There's no question you've made a huge impact in a great many lives. So props to you for that. And as we close, anybody you want to thank or shout out to, sir?
I wish I could remember all the names of all of my instructors. I would say all of them. I'm very thankful. The couple of instructors that stand out in my mind, at the top of my list is one of the guys who started it all was Sifu Rick Faye, because he started me on the Jeet Kune Do path, the Jeet Kune Do journey, opened my mind to a lot of things that, a lot of instructors kind of, they want you in their system and they want you around. Rarely do you have instructors who are strong enough to encourage you to go study with other instructors. Sifu Rick Faye started me on that journey, and Guro Dan Inosanto continued me on that journey. And so I'm very thankful to them for being open and being honest with me about the pursuit of cross-training. I'm very thankful for my jiu-jitsu instructor, Professor Joe Morera. He opened his heart to me and started to teach me some really good jiu-jitsu back in the day when there was the pact or whatever you call it. I'm really thankful for the jiu-jitsu that he taught me. And my Calis Illustrissimo instructor, Romeo Macabagal in the Philippines, he really opened up my eyes to a lot. I'm very thankful for all of my instructors and all that they've shared with me, but these four individuals, they stand out in my mind.
Very nice. Well, you've certainly had some really great people, some great influences in your life and in your journey, and you've turned around kind of full circle and paid it forward by being in that kind of position for many, many people in the martial arts world as well. So much respect to you for what you do on and off the mat, sir, and it's a great honor to be speaking with you. So thank you so much for letting us get to know a little more about you and your life, and again, thank you for what you do. And keep on keeping on, sir.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity.
All right. I wish you a long, healthy, and happy life.
Thank you.
Okay. Really enjoyed that interview with Professor Roy Harris. As I stated before the interview, he's a very deep and interesting person, and it was my honor to speak with him. Okay. Stay tuned now for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Okay, time now for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Let's start with a quote. One never notices what has been done. One can only see what remains to be done. And that's from Marie Curie. And interesting quote, and we don't want that to be us. So as we move to the kind of a midpoint of the year, it's a great time to stop and reflect on how your life is changing and reward yourself for your accomplishments. It's so common for us to quickly move from one project, goal, or task to the next without stopping to acknowledge what we've accomplished already. We all need acknowledgement and reward, and the very best person to fulfill this need is you. So as you review your actions during the first half of the year, take some time to consider the following questions. What changes, either large or small, have I made in my life so far? How have I grown as a result of these changes? What have I accomplished? What am I most proud of? And what ways have I been able to make taking care of myself a priority? How has my relationship with myself improved? So we all need to give ourselves the gift of self-reflection. So it's not a bad idea to go get in a quiet spot, use something as a journal or something you can write your thoughts in, and just take a few moments to answer these questions and reflect on them. And if you make this a regular exercise or practice, it will really help strengthen your relationship with yourself, and it give you a sense of gratification, acknowledging and being aware of what you have indeed accomplished so far in your year. And it also helps create momentum for the rest of your year and the rest of your life. So going through your day, your week, and your month, again, give yourself the gift of self-reflection. Take time to acknowledge what you've accomplished, where you are, and then you can look forward on where you want to go. I think by doing this, you will have a much more happy and fulfilled life. And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. I appreciate all feedback, so if you have feedback, please don't hesitate to give it. If you have ideas for the show or for guests, please let me know about those. You can leave feedback on the website at www.graciejujitsurocks.com. You can also leave feedback on iTunes, and while you're there, make sure to rate the show. It helps us with our standing in iTunes. If you haven't liked us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter, please go ahead and do that. And don't forget to share the episodes on your Facebook and social media. Again, thanks again for listening, and until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.